Mark, how you doing?
Doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing okay. Feeling a little under the weather, but we'll get through it. So I wanted to bring you on because you are a children's book author,
Yes.
but before that, I think before that, I'm assuming that you were in the Air Force.
Yes, I was in the Air Force for about 9 years, and then I went into the Air Force Reserve
Hmm.
after that. So another 4 years after that.
Okay. And then what did you ever? I mean, were you stationed anywhere, or were you just were you stateside, or where'd you go with that?
Actually, I spent time overseas in Okinawa. I spent time in Korea. I also
Hmm.
spent time stateside in Austin, Texas, and Montgomery, Alabama, were my stateside bases.
Yeah, I just got back from Austin week before last. Interesting little town. We rode in a driverless car. Went to Joe Rogan's comedy club, saw Tom Segura. That was a blast, and
Hmm.
had some overpriced barbecue. What got you into being a children's author versus doing thrillers or murder mystery stuff?
Well, I started seeing a lot of after the military. I got into other jobs. I worked in corrections, a nonprofit, and then I switched over into education. And I started seeing a lot of authors coming in my elementary school. And I was at that time I was the one-on-one aide, a teacher's aide, and so I started asking questions about them. But it wasn't until 15 years later that I started actually writing. So it was like 2020, and so it was about 15 years before that when I actually started talking to authors. But I had all these stories that I wanted to share about education and my children and grandchildren, and I wanted to dedicate each book to each child. So I started in 2020 with a book called Did You Come Home for Lunch? And that one was, it took about 9 months to go through the publishing process. And then that one was put out in February of 21. And I just been moving along really. I'm on my 13th book and I'm in three anthologies,
Hmm.
and I'm looking to be in a fourth anthology on flash fiction, which hopefully will come out next year.
Okay.
And so I've just been really busy doing those kind of things.
Yeah.
But the stories really are theme-based, related stories. So when I go into schools and daycares, I typically try to give it theme-based so that I can really have a lesson at the end. And a lot of interaction between the children and myself.
What kind of themes do you touch on in your books?
Things like bullying, problem solving, being a military dependent, moving, things like that. Those are kind of the themes that I've been hitting on. And so each one has a little different theme going to it. Plus, I
Hmm.
use a lot of literary elements like rhyming in there as well.
Yeah, I think when you add those kinds of that kind of an element kind of helps. I've always people that have. Let me do that again. People that have the ability to rhyme words and be a wordsmith, I think
Uh-huh.
they have a hold on the English language that most people don't. It's
Uh-huh.
like you're able to. I think when you're able to rhyme in a certain way, it makes you a more critical thinker. But that's just my hypothesis. So 13 books. What are they called?
Well, I've got one called "Did You Come Home for Lunch?" I've got
Hmm.
that was the first one that I wrote. Then I wrote
Hmm.
"Rules, Rules, Rules."
Okay.
That's typically for the education side of the house, and I wrote "The Toilet Paper Caper of 2020."
Okay.
Excuse me. Then I wrote one on living on a military base, Babbling Betty, which is an alliteration. And then I wrote, let's see, there was Anna's Amazing Alaskan Adventure.
Hmm.
It Happens. The Problem Is. So there's quite a few that I've written,
Yeah.
and I've got three or four in the hopper that I've been pre-writing on right now. So it's just that's kind of how I work it. I put them in. I do a lot of pre-writing, then I put them up on my in folders,
Hmm.
and then I just go to the next book, and then that's how I work on it. I just come back and revise the previous pre-writes.
Let's say you're writing the toilet paper caper, and while you're
Hmm.
doing that one, do you go from like do you ever swap ideas in between, or do you find inspiration when you're writing for one book to another? Like, does that
Yes,
ever happen?
yeah. I'm more or less to call a pantser. A pantser is kind of a person who gets these creative thoughts and just writes them down right away.
Right.
Whereas I don't plot out a lot of my books, and like I don't sit down every single day. But when I get all the dialogues and things that I want to put in the book, it could be over a year process of dialogue of just
Right.
hearing what the children, the grandchildren are saying. So typically, I will start with the title first, and
Hmm.
then I'll build the story around the title. And usually I'll use stories that I've had as a child or my children have had or my grandchildren, or even in my education experience, I'll do that too.
Hmm.
And so, like, for instance, I wrote another one, Brains Over Brawn, which had to do with bullying. And that one, I used some real life photos in there as well.
Hmm.
So, so I used the stories from my childhood and also the bullying prevention and that kind of thing. So I put resources in the back of that book that talked about bullying.
Bullying is something that we were just accustomed to.
Hmm.
And, part of me, I think a little prodding is fine. Like it builds a little bit of character. But I think when you're getting physically assaulted and beat up, that's a different story. But do you draw inspiration from your grandkids? Like, because you were just saying that they, with the grandkids, I'm assuming that you can kind of draw from them to figure out a story or help flesh something out. Is it their experiences that help you write this, or is it something else?
It's a combination of my experiences and their experiences. Like Babbling Betty, part of the story came about because when I was actually traveling with my dad, I
Hmm.
was talking a lot, and so I was babbling a lot. So my dad gave me a wad of bubble gum, and and so I started chewing on it, and so that actually came into the story of Babbling Betty with the character. And so that's kind of how I do the inspirations. I had another one. The problem is the dialogue. One of my grandchildren were saying. A grandchild was saying, "I come over at 47 and you come over at 74." They were really, really young. They didn't understand time. The
Hmm.
same thing with "Did you come home for lunch?" I was only gone for 14 days, but the 3-year-old had no clue that I'd been gone that long. He thought, "Did you come home for lunch?"
Hmm.
So those are the kind of things that I try to build on.
Hmm.
Now there are authors who actually like go and write the story and then put a title. I typically don't do that. I do it the other way around.
So is that considered a unique approach, doing the title then the story, or vice versa?
For me, it is.
Hmm. Yeah,
For me, it makes it easier for me to write a story around the title.
that makes
And it
sense.
needs to be a title that's catchy or like I wrote another one, which I didn't mention, was called I Was Just About. Well, the reader's going to want to know, well, I was just about what? So in order to find out, they have to open the book. And so the book actually talks about the subject of moving
Hmm.
and how children who might move all over the place, whether military or civilian,
Hmm.
how they deal with it.
Right.
So,
Okay.
and so that.
Yeah. I the toilet paper caper, that really sticks out
Mhm.
in my brain. Ever since you said it, it's been repeating in my head. How did you come? What is that about?
Okay, so the toilet paper caper of 2020 basically was talking about the year of the COVID.
Right.
And I actually had a publisher, not the same one that I published it through, say, take the 2020 off. I'm like, no, that was a historic moment in time. It wasn't a great time, but it was historic nevertheless. And so during the reason why I wrote it is because I saw a lot of people who were hoarding toilet paper. And it's not really just all about toilet paper, it's about taking advantage of other people. And
Okay.
that was the reason why I wrote the book. So when I talk to the students about it, I tell them, look, taking advantage of other people is not cool, especially in a situation that's bad for everybody.
Hmm.
So it doesn't matter whether it's toilet paper, it doesn't matter what it is. The point of the matter is it's still wrong. It's
Yeah.
still taking advantage of people, still hoarding and selling at exorbitant costs and all that stuff. And I felt like, I wanted to write a book with rhyming and I wanted to write a book about COVID, so that was the reason why I wrote that. And then it really shocked me one day when there was a young boy actually reading it on YouTube.
Yeah. Oh, so he was like doing a
He was
reading
actually
video on
reading,
it.
yeah, he was
Yeah,
actually
that's cool.
reading the whole book.
Yeah, that's so. I remember there was a guy during COVID. He had bought up a bunch of hand sanitizer. He went to some big box store, bought all they had, and he was selling it out of his garage. And the authorities came and said, "You're not doing this." He got in trouble for it. Yeah, no, listen, there's people out there that will definitely take advantage of any disaster, any type of incident out there. You're reaching out to a younger audience that won't do that kind of stuff. There's certain people that don't have a moral compass anymore and they just want to
Mhm,
get
mhm.
rich. What piqued your interest into becoming an author? I mean, where was that? Cuz you said you were a teacher's assistant before you became an author?
And then later on, I became a teacher. I taught second, fifth, and sixth grade, and I did a lot of daycare and stuff like that. So I typically will go into daycares too, as
Mhm.
well. And matter of fact, I went into one that I actually read in one that I was actually a daycare teacher in many, many years before.
Yeah.
And so it brought back a lot of experiences. But I just used a lot of the education experiences, and like that's how rules came about because there
Mhm.
were so many rules the first day that the child has to learn. and so I was writing a book about that. And so I like to write in the education realm too,
Right.
but I also want to make it, make it enjoyable too, but not just boring.
Yeah, because if it doesn't have anything fun, it's just a manual at that point,
Mhm.
you know.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you've ever read a manual or not, but it ain't fun. So, what do you do in your free time when you're not writing? I mean, are you're retired from teaching and the military? I take it.
I'm a disabled vet.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sorry to
Yeah,
hear
so
that.
I actually but I do things like with veterans organizations,
Hmm.
with disabled vets, American Legion, VFW, things like that. So I try to stay busy with the veteran world
Hmm.
in between time of trying to, write the next book or go to events and things like that, and try to be a part of that. And really try to spread the word about. And for me, it really boils down to three things: literacy, learning, and legacy.
Hmm.
Those are the three things that I focus on.
Okay.
Plus, I want to make a difference in the lives of children. So for me, it's not about how much money I make or anything like that, because you don't make a lot of money once the printing costs, once all the shipping costs, all that stuff adds in. It's very expensive.
Right.
And then a lot of times you have to, as an author, if you want it in globally or in bookstores, you have to discount it to a wholesale and not
Mm,
retail. And so you're already losing already. But for me, it's been about the passion and having a purpose. I've donated books to military dependents.
mhm.
I try to stay involved with them. That's an important niche for me, and I just really enjoy doing that. And really, if one child comes up to me and says, Mr. McCraw, I really liked your book, that's all I need. All
Right.
I need is, one child reads my book, then I've tackled at least the beginning of literacy,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So
I don't know what the current literacy rate is in the nation. Is it still pretty low? Because I remember back when I was in high school.
literacy rate is it's very concerning to me.
Mhm.
It's so concerning that that's the reason why I think as an author we have a way to get into the literacy rates, to increase literacy rates and things like that. And that's the reason why I went with that mantra with literacy and learning, so
Mhm.
that they could be able to read more. And that's been part of the problem, is not enough children are reading. Which I'm not against technology, don't get me wrong. I
Mhm.
think it's great to have technology and tablets and all that. But when they spend most of their time on their tablets and they're not doing other things, or they're not using a program they're reading to them, or they're doing some reading things on the tablet, or they're not going to the libraries, or they're not reading at home, that's concerning, because when you have high school students coming out of high school that are 3 grades behind,
Yeah.
that's bad for the employment side of the house.
Yeah, well, it definitely makes it to where you can't if you can't read, you can't, like, how do you know what to do? I'm dyslexic, so I have a hard time, reading some things. But mine's if it makes sense, I'm more numerically
Mhm.
screwed up like that. So I think that's why I became such an avid reader as like a young teen. I read everything I can get my hands on, and then I stopped for a number of years, and then I mentioned before we started recording that I discovered Dean Koontz, and that's when I went ballistic. I think I read everything I get my hands on, just because it was like dark and mysterious stuff and had some cool stuff in it, but it was a little lighter than Stephen King.
Mhm.
So for me, it was more enjoyable. And I think if you're an avid reader, it really helps with your imagination. It helps with your critical thinking skills. It makes you more aware of things. For me, it's reading and video games. I've been gaming since I was a kid as well, and I think that also can help with some critical thinking skills. But like
Mhm.
anything else, you can't just sit there and do it all day long. Obviously, you have to get
Yeah,
out and touch
you have to
grass
do
and
it. You have to do it
yeah,
in moderation. And
exactly.
the other thing that I saw is a lot of kids would go to the library and they'd see, oh, Captain Underpants, and oh, I like that, or that kind of thing. And so
Hmm.
all the kids would come in and look get that book. And I said, but can you read that book? And they're like, they couldn't. It was only about the cover.
Right.
And they say you can't judge a book by the cover, but you can in the author world. In the author world, the cover is very important.
Hmm.
It's very, very important actually, because a lot of people look at the covers, and go from there. But I think that sometimes the kids will get a book only because it's peer pressure.
Hmm.
So they need to be looking at magazines, they need to be looking at newspapers, they need to be looking at a combination of fiction and nonfiction, and some of these other things, recipe cards, and working with their moms and dads, when they go to the store and that kind of thing, weighing things. And because I found that most kids that in education do much better when they have those life experiences.
as far as electronic gadgets go, but and in the setup for this thing. But I like the feel of a book in my hand. I like to turn the page. I like to have the bookmark and the experience of reading a book. I don't this idea of Kindles. When I first saw those, I thought those were absolutely ridiculous because it's like, what? I don't. How do you like? I don't. I just want to pick like, especially on an airplane. Like if I'm traveling, everyone's got to turn off their electrical device. Well, I got my Dean Koontz book right here, and I don't need to do anything. I can just sit and read the whole thing.
Hmm.
But I think that reading it's becoming a dying art, unfortunately. But then again, it's also hard to find a decent author sometimes these days because I think sometimes you get people that crank out books for the sake of cranking them out, and sometimes there's no substance to them.
Yeah,
How do you feel about the publication process? Now, do you have like a traditional publisher, or do you self-publish, or?
that's a good question. I've gone to two publishers,
Mhm.
Archway Publishing and Palmetto Publishing, and those were self-published still. So
Mhm.
I'm more of a self-published author. I don't do the traditional. I
Mhm.
am looking eventually in being a hybrid publisher, or
Okay.
being involved with a book to a hybrid publisher in the future. But we'll see about that. I'm not sure
Yeah.
yet, but it's being talked about. So we'll see how that goes. Maybe next year,
Right.
maybe doing a hybrid publishing.
No.
But no, everything is self-published. I go through and do the writing and pre-writing and revising and all that. But I also get either an editing program or editor, and then somebody who can format and illustrate. And it actually works nice when the illustrator is actually can format the book and do the cover too. So
Yeah.
that really saves a lot on doing that. Those steps are very important because I don't want to put out a piece of junk. It's
Absolutely
a
not.
it's a
Yeah.
lot of work, and then, you gotta wait for Amazon or Ingram Spark to, approve it and all that stuff and make sure it's right. I've actually had books that have come back, incorrect on printing, so I watch for that and things of that nature, printing
Mhm.
errors. But,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's typically, I mean, it can take me anywhere. It just depends on the illustrator, but anywhere from 90 to 120 days or so on how long it takes for the illustrator to get through the illustrations.
Right. Is he using a program on a computer for that, or is he doing it by hand, or is it or
No,
is it
doing by hand, by hand.
wow. Okay, so it's
Yeah,
old school. Okay.
yeah, yeah. So
Yes, that
a lot of it's illustrations by hand.
mhm.
Then I had several books that were written, were illustrated by a Ukrainian illustrator. So
Mhm.
I've had several books there, and then I had my daughter actually was an illustrator for one of my books called "I Was Just About,"
Mhm.
and she did a really good job there. And then I had another illustrator as well. So
Yeah.
I've had several different illustrators, and I typically stay within the same realm of illustrators
Mhm.
that I've vetted because there's so many frauds going on out there. I mean, on Facebook and people,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, trying to get illustrators or people to edit or format and then they rip them off.
Yeah.
So I try to make sure that people that I deal with are vetted.
Yeah, absolutely. I just got an email from a company that wants to edit my podcast. I got it, thanks. I mean, it may not be perfect, it may not be polished
Hmm.
yet, but I'll get there. Like, sit down to write. Do you do it on a typewriter? Do you do it on a computer? Like, what's your process with that?
I do it on the computer, but I also like if there's dialogue or things I hear throughout the week, I'll actually text myself
Mhm.
and I'll text the dialogue or if I get a thought, I'll say let's change that in the book, and then I'll text myself.
Yeah, so it's just a little reminder of this
Hmm.
is yeah, that's actually a good idea. I know some people, like also people that I knew that were like amateur authors, they would carry a tape recorder and speak into it and then have it. That's analog stuff from back in the 90s because we
Yeah,
didn't have
I'd
all this.
admit I still have a digital recorder. I just haven't used it in a while.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, I probably should, but I don't.
Yeah, I want to take a step back to what you were saying about the tablets and stuff. Is I remember going grocery shopping, and there was this kid that he couldn't have been more kindergarten age maybe, and he was just on the tablet and he just mindlessly tapping it. I just don't know why we've gone that direction with raising children. So I don't know why it's just become a electronic babysitter, maybe. It's like no
In
one
some
wants to.
ways.
Yeah, and I noticed that I was listening to another podcast, and there was the guest. He's a famous musician, and when he sits down with dinner with his family, have a thing that's like a pepper grinder that clicks, and so it's like a blind flight. And so his kids actually have to talk to them. He's like, "We're your family. That tablet's not. So you need to talk to us because that way we can know what's going on in your life." But I don't. It all feels like we live in a simulation. If I'm being honest, Mark.
Yeah, well, I'm not objected to technology because
Right.
I think technology has its place, but like you said, it really needs to be in moderation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because kids are missing out when they're spending 5 hours on a tablet, 4 hours, 3 hours when they could be outside when it's a nice day, or
Mm-hmm.
they could be doing some other things, or drawing, or reading, or doing a picture, or puzzle, or whatever, something different to, or getting out and, riding their bicycle and skateboard or whatever. They need to be able to do those things because otherwise, they just don't have the social skills. They're not out doing things. They're not interacting and stuff like that. So that's very concerning. And
Mm-hmm.
then when they have the games, then they get all frustrated if they don't win or they die or they don't understand the game. So
Mm-hmm.
then they get angry and stuff like that. And so, like I said, grandkids, they have their technology and all that stuff, but I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, your time's up, or whatever.
Right.
You got to do that too as a parent, I think, or grandparent. If you're babysitting, you need to moderate the time and let them do other things, and maybe help you with something or whatever, maybe a project that you're working on, or build something at the table or whatever.
Is there any particular author that really stood out to you that said, "Hey, you know what? This kind of inspires me to do this," or is this just something that you came to on your own?
I guess a lot of it was Jerry Pallotta a long time ago. He was from the Northeast. He wrote a lot of accounting books, and this was back in probably 2005 or six or somewhere around there. So, but I ran into a couple of them. There was one I can't remember the name, but they would play the drums, and then they would also one would draw while they were reading, and I was fascinated with the different methods and stuff like that. But so I always loved Dr. Seuss. No, Dr. Seuss is amazing. How he created all the books and the way he did things with the language.
Mhm.
That's always fascinated me. And then recently, with the last couple of years, Tammy Sayer, which is an Oklahoma author, and she's written like 29 books. And a lot of what I do in my books, I pick up a lot of the training that she gave me in one of her training sessions for the Society of Children Book Writers and Illustrators.
Okay.
And so I've really taken to heart a lot of what she said in the training and really tried to ensure the literary elements and also switching it up, like an alliteration. Like when I did Anna's Amazing Alaskan Adventure, I got asked on a podcast, well, how many A's did you put in? I said, I never really thought about it. I just did it. But I counted, it was like 602.
Well, it is the first letter of the alphabet, so it's the easiest one to get.
And so somebody said, well, why don't you go through and do the alliterations? I'm like, yeah, I've thought about it. I've done some, but I don't know. I have a lot of different ideas, and I have some good, I think I have some good books. We'll see how, it's still kind of in the pre-writing, but we'll see. But I think I have some funny books coming, elementary books, and I try to switch it up. Like I'm working right now on a second grade book about bullying.
Mhm.
And so, the next book after that will be a different one, a different grade. So I kind of switch it up. And then when I go to schools, then I try to make sure that I pick the right book for the right grades and stuff when I'm reading books in a vending machine too, which that just happened. Which I was
Really?
like, yeah, I'm really impressed because I've had books in the library, I've had books in overseas and different places, and I was like, that's pretty wild. I get to,
How does that work? Do they just stock it like a normal vending machine?
Yeah, they stock it like a vending machine, and like so when a child goes to the library or wherever the vending machine is,
Yeah.
and let's say they do really good on their reading goals, and they get a token. So they put the token in there, and then in this one case, 5 of my books are in one of the vending machines.
Mhm.
So they get to pick from, and of course there's other books beside mine, of course, and so they can choose what other books they want.
Mhm.
And so I was really happy that I got to be a part of that project, and I would have never thought it would have gone into a vending machine.
Yeah, that's a really cool idea. So, have you ever thought about venturing outside of the realm of children's books?
Possibly, I want to do the children's. Yeah,
Mhm.
I was an elementary school teacher. I went to school to be an elementary school teacher,
Mhm.
and I just enjoy that. I think the Brains Over Brawn actually talks about fifth through eighth.
Mhm.
That's probably the higher books that I have. There are some other ones that are fourth and fifth. So that I've done some early, well, chapter books. They're not really long chapter books.
Mhm.
And part of the reason is because attention span nowadays is cut short. So I try to and even some of the third graders could actually read it because it's not long chapters. Like one of my co-authors wrote, and I wrote Nikolai Piccoli, which is a book about pickles. That's one of the ones I may not have mentioned, but Nikolai Piccoli is actually was written by a 10-year-old and myself. We collaborated on it together. Well, not written, but actually collaborated on, and the illustrations and how we wanted the book to have different scenes and stuff like that was all collaborated by a fifth grader and
That's
myself.
cool. Yeah, so I mean, that probably will inspire that kid to go on and do more stuff, because it gives
Uh-huh.
him a positive experience with someone who's passionate about it as well. So hopefully that'll spark a fire under him to maybe be a literary person as well.
Well, okay,
So,
considering that he's a fifth grader, which he's like he used to tell me, he said, I go down the hall and people say, we'll call him Nikolai Piccoli. I said, do they do it in a mean way? He goes, no. He
yeah.
goes, that's just the nickname that they gave me. And so we did a book about pickles. And he said, I said, you do realize that you're not only an Oklahoma author, but you're also an international author. You're
Mhm.
like in 22 different countries.
Yeah.
And he's like, so that's a lot to take in for a fifth grader.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's cool though. I mean, it's nice that you were able to do that and to do that for him.
I just enjoy the whole process. I enjoy being a part of going to schools and daycares. I've read to over 1,000 students. I've done virtual author visits, and I try to collaborate with other authors. We do joint events together.
Mhm.
One of them actually went on to go into movies. Is Ron Cisneros, and does that. One of my other friends, who's the author, who's also a vendor at the local veterans hospital, also is into music and writes songs and writes books. And so John Cox is his name. And so there's just so many different creatives out there. It's just unbelievable. The person that did Babbling Betty, Artful Alley on TikTok, she actually has picked up a lot of books since Babbling Betty, and she's doing a lot of different illustrations and stuff for people. So, it's all about being working as a creative community.
When you're looking for someone to collaborate with, do you have a pool of people that you work with, or do you ever branch out, or
Yeah, no, I know what
um,
you're saying. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So I do branch out on different people. Sometimes, if I'm at an event, I'll ask for people to do some narrations for Audible, things of that nature. So I do branch out in that respect. Someone so I try to get children through their parents to do Audibles and read of my books and things like that. So I don't have all of them on Audible. I have four of them on Audible.
Mhm.
And but I'm hoping to get like a fifth and sixth one. It's time consuming on that. And of course the narration process, it takes a little while too. So uh,
Yeah. Do you have a hard time finding people to narrate your books on for voiceovers like that, or is it is there a pool of people that can be used, or how does that work?
well, I mean, I try to get the adults, which they don't necessarily have to do the intros and the outros, and the summary of the book. It could be an adult or child, but typically I try to stay away from doing adults doing
Mm,
children's voices or changing to children's voices.
yeah.
Getting children to do that is hard because there's not a lot of, I mean, I've thought about looking into, some like theater groups and stuff like that,
Mhm.
that might be kids that might be interested through their parents, and asking them to narrate my books because I really want a child to read the book.
Yeah, that makes sense because you want it
Uh,
from that perspective, you know?
yeah, and I've read it myself. I'm on all of my books. I think I've read every single book on indie read alouds, pagespromotions.com. They do a lot for me as far as having me read my books on indie read alouds on
Mhm,
YouTube. So I do that, and I also participate in Read Across America, those kind of things on Facebook, doing some readathons on Facebook.
mhm,
I also do the local elementary schools and stuff like that with the school bus. They have a school bus that goes around and gives books to people. So I've
right.
donated books to them before, and then I've also participated in being a volunteer on the book bus where the kids, we go to an elementary school, the district goes to an elementary school, and then the kids come and get a free book.
Where can people buy your books?
They can buy them on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million. I also do ebooks. You can find them on Rakuten Kobo. You can find them on Overdrive and the library Libby. You can find some on www.markmccraw, MARK, MCCRAW.com. That's
Okay.
where I put all my different trailers and books and things like that are all on there, blogs, interviews, things of that nature.
Okay. And then do you have a YouTube channel or anything like that, or
I do. You just have to look me up on YouTube, look up for Mark McCraw, author, and you'll find me there. And so I do have a YouTube channel. I don't remember the actual number on it. It'll say author, and then it'll have Mark McCraw author, and I'll have a number, but I don't remember what that number is. But I do stuff with Korea Defense Veterans Association, so I've got a video out there. It's got a lot of hits on it and stuff. So there's some other YouTube channels I think I have out there.
okay, good. Well, I do appreciate you coming on, and I appreciate you taking time out and talking to me. So,
But thanks a lot. Appreciate you
yeah,
having me.
yeah. And if for me, you can find me on YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble and Spotify. So, thanks everybody for tuning in.